Oh, man, we've just reached week 4 of the college football season. That's Scott Spreitzer right there. That's Rob Zatechka right there. I screwed this whole thing up. See, this is an unscripted show. So I'm going to go to this shot right here to say, hey, everybody, welcome to Behind the Point Spread. I'm Travis Justice. Good to have you along on a Wednesday night. Man, 4 weeks into the college football season, I'm telling you, week number 4 is going to be an absolute crazy, crazy week. There are some big games, and we have 4 big ones to talk about tonight. And we want you to talk about them with us. So if you want to participate in tonight's show, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can do it in the comment section on Facebook and on YouTube. You can just insert your comments there and your questions, and we can read those. Or better yet, we haven't had a call yet. You know, and we have Owens, my son, his girlfriend Lizzie is screening the calls tonight. If you have a question for Dr. Rob, if you have a question for Scott Spreitzer, all you have to do is dial it up at 402-543-5556. Again, that's 402-543-5556. Now, let's bring in the men you are all here to see tonight. To my left is the one and only Scott Spreitzer, and below us is our good friend Dr. Rob Zatechka. Hello, Doc. Have you been doing a lot of doctoring today?
Little work, still got the day job. I can't just do this stuff all day long like you and Scott do.
Well, hold on. I have a real job. You know, Scott's got the best job of us all, right? I mean, but maybe the most stressful. And I know you knocking people out and putting people in surgery is stressful. But if you had to, you know, put in bets every day and rely on those bets on a daily basis on your income, I think you would be a little stressed.
There's a little there's a little uncertainty there. Although when you talk about day jobs,
yeah.
Don't you play golf for a living?
I do not play golf for a living. Just because I have
golfing with people.
I go golfing with people. Yes, it's called entertainment, Scott. See, he's mocking me for my job, but it's actually entertainment, is what
you
it
just
is.
said. Your job is entertainment.
Yeah, it's called business development, right? And I think my boss is probably watching right now, and he's rolling his eyes and either laughing or going, "Yeah, he golfs way too much." But Scott, you and I were talking before we went on the air. Hell, you're so stressed. You don't go to bed till 4:30 a.m. Central Time, right? You're up watching that many games?
Oh, I'm up till Central Time. I'm up till about 6 a.m. Central Time.
Oh, my God.
4 a.m. Pacific
You're in Vegas. You guys don't sleep out there anyway.
Try not to. But it's I usually fall asleep about 4 a.m. my time out here in Vegas, so that's 6 a.m. your time, and usually get up about 10:30. I rarely sleep past 10:30, and just one of those guys who – it's funny, if I get more than 6.5 hours of sleep, I feel hungover. I just do. Even if I drink nothing but water for the last month, I still feel like I'm hungover. So about 6.5 hours, and I'm good to go. Listen, I can make a mistake and I lose a bet and I lose a few bucks. I don't want to be Doc Rob and make a few mistakes. You know, I mean, a different story there. So I could see that his job might be a little bit more stressful. Plus, you know, again, I've had experience of losing days. And you can experience several of those and still hold on to your bankroll. Can't do that as an anesthesiologist. You can't have losing days. And so that's a little bit different. But anyway, yeah, man, it's like I get done working usually about 2 a.m. my time. I go downstairs. I flip on, like right now, I just started watching that about a week ago. I'll go downstairs. I'll watch an episode 2 or 2 of that, maybe have a glass of bourbon with it to unwind. Fall asleep about 4 a.m., get up about 10:30, start all over again.
Man, but that's it. If I screw up at work, I just say I'm sorry and I come home and that's about it. So, hey, if you want to work with Scott personally, you can do that by texting the word Doc Talk to the number 29022 and get a free $60 trial of the premium member picks from Scott, or visit docsports.com and sign up for the free 60 on the upper hand left of the website. Also, we have some college football promos for you tonight. Nebraska, all right? Nebraska fans, here is your college football promo. This is good on the Iowa app and Colorado app only. So just know that, Nebraska fans, if you live close to Iowa or Colorado, this is only available on those 2 apps. The Nebraska first half, minus 10.5, that jumps from minus 10 to plus 100 odds. Again, minus 10.5. So minus 110 to plus 100 odds. That's at the first half only. If you're an Iowa fan, and we'll be talking about the Iowa game a little bit later on as well. The Hawkeyes team total over 12.5 goes from -10 to +100 odds. That's going to be available on the Iowa app only. So some little boost from you from BetFred Sports. The Nebraska bet is only in the Iowa app and the Colorado app. The Iowa bet is only in the Iowa app. Scott, last week you gave us some really good content when it came to turnover margin. I thought it was fascinating, and I've been talking to you during the week, and I said, you know what, we need to do something like that to really highlight how important certain statistics are in the college game. We want to start out tonight. And Rob, you're going to find this fascinating. This is about finishing drives. So, Scott, I'll let you explain this because I get it, but I think you're much better than me to explain it.
Yeah, it's a metric that somebody kind of like discovered and really started putting a lot of time into it a few years ago. It's called finishing drives metric. And, there's a lot of these metrics that I'll create on my own. There's a lot that we share with each other as far as professional bettors and guys in the same circles and all that. So this one that this particular person found and has started using it, I started noticing it in 2018. But anyway, what it basically does is it's an offensive metric, if you want to talk about offense first, that measures points per trip inside the opponent's 40-yard line. The defensive metric, the defensive side of finishing drives, is points allowed per trip inside their own 40-yard line when a team gets inside the 40. And if you look at this, the top 25% of offenses in this metric since 2018 through 2022 covered the spread 55.4% of the time. 55.4% is a very good season for professional bettors when it comes to 11 to win 10, which is college and pro football, obviously. The top 25% of defenses in this metric covered 57.1% of the time over that same time span, 2018 through 2022. And just to let you know what that means, if you're betting $100 to win $100, so you're betting $110 per game at 57.1%, $100 per game, and you're talking about a profit of about $1,000. It's just shy of that. It's $5,710 won, $4,719 lost. So almost $1,000 a season just betting $100 per unit. Even better than that, guys, the bottom 10% of the offenses in this metric have only covered 39.4% of the time, 2018 through 2022. The bottom 10 defenses, bottom 10%, 40.6% against the spread since 2018 through 2022. So you can see when you go against those bottom 10%, both offense and defense, you are really cleaning up. There's very few metrics out there that have correlated for 5 straight seasons to winning and losing these games. And when you factor in returning experience in that mix, and you're talking about like offensive metrics in the finishing drives metric, there were 3 teams that stood head and shoulders above everybody this year: Oregon, USC, and Washington. They're all in the Pac-12, soon to be moving elsewhere. Those teams are not only 9-0 straight up, they're 7-1-1 against the spread so far. Defensive top teams that returned experience: Texas A&M and South Alabama. Both of those teams 2-1 straight up. A&M 2-1 against the spread. South Alabama is only 1-2 against the spread, but remember they were up 35-10, got backdoored with about 40 seconds to go in one of their 2 spread losses. But at 1-2, and these teams are hitting at the rate they are, I'll keep looking to play South Alabama for several weeks now. They're going to have to beat me a couple of times before I jump off of them. But I know this is kind of an overall and it kind of quickly, but also it's a metric you have to work on, because I found no sites that track this. So this is one of those reasons I'm up on a Sunday night until 2 or 3 in the morning, or a Saturday night, because I'm going through all the drive charts for all the games.
It's funny that you say, because I was going to ask, where does somebody find that kind of information? You pretty much have to do it on your own. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's tedious. I'm up and I'm just going through all the drive charts every Saturday night after all the games are final, after I've got my final couple of bets made for Sunday's NFL. I kick back, pour a glass of Woodford, and I said we should get an advertisement for that. Pour a glass of Woodford, and then I go through all the games and I go through their drive charts. And I see where teams started all their drives. And if they're inside the 40, then I see what they did. And that's how you got to do it. It's time consuming. It takes a couple hours every week.
Wow.
Hey, Scott, when you look at the difference between the offense and the defense, as far as those statistics are concerned, I mean, you're basically looking at 55% on the offensive side, 57% on the defensive side.
Mhm.
How big a difference is that 2%? I mean, is that kind of a wash in the sense of, yeah, whether you're looking at it offensively or defensively, it's kind of an equal odds kind of thing? Or do you look at that 2%? If the defense is 57% against the spread for a particular team, is that something you should kind of hang your hat on, or do you got to
Sure.
pay attention to both?
Oh, I pay attention to both, but yeah, I mean, the defense at that percentage is, if you're betting just to win $100 per game and you look at the defense as opposed to the offense, you're talking about a couple $100 over the course of a season, a few $100 over the course of a season. So obviously that margin grows as your bets grow. If you're betting, basically a dime a game, $1,000 a game, then all of a sudden it grows even more. So I like to play both guys because 55%, 55.4% again is a really good season for professional bettors when it comes to a sport like football, where it's 11 to win 10 against the spread. You're not dealing with Major League Baseball money lines and all that kind of stuff. And of course, the best thing is that, bottom 10% offenses are terrible. Bottom 10% defenses in the finishing drives metric are terrible. You're talking about 60% over 5 seasons. And the reason I dug this up, even though you don't just like click on a website and boom, there's all the stuff kept for you throughout the course of the season, and you got to do some work to dig into this. It's just one of the best metrics I've seen that have lasted for 5 seasons. And now it's working again in the 6th season of using this metric. So, but you're right. You're gonna make a few more bucks just focusing in on nothing but the defensive metrics.
On the offensive side, I should have read it a little bit closer. That's finishing a drive. Does that include field goals?
Yeah, it includes field goals, touchdowns, and when you're inside the opponent's 40. So it has to include both, and it comes out to a point total, like how many points is a team doing per trips inside the 40, both offensively and defensively allowed. And then you start factoring in these metrics. And like I said, it's not easy to find. You got to be disciplined. You got to be up every night. My brother, who's came to Vegas before I did, he's retired now. He's 70, and he worked in the hotels on the Strip. And I remember when he would go on vacation or whatever, and he goes, "How the hell do you not just say, screw it, I'm not working tonight?" He goes, "I don't have that kind of discipline because I don't have to go to an office. I just set up my desk." But you got to do it, man. You really do. And I'll take time off during baseball season. I'll take time off around Christmas time. But it's just what I like doing. And I'll just make this statement real fast. I hate losing, obviously. We all hate losing, no matter what we're in. But one of my favorite things to do is, like, for instance, Major League Baseball. If I'm having a bad run, there's nothing I like better than trying to figure out why and come up with some new math and some new angles to get out of that slump. The problem is you have to be in a slump in order to have or to go through that time that for me is like my favorite time of trying to figure out why things aren't working the way they did maybe the season before. So it's just, I'm up quite a bit, as you guys can tell. And when I take time off, I feel like I'm missing something when I'm not doing my handicapping on a nightly basis.
Rob, I would have loved to see you and Scott have like a math off, because I want to know who's better at math, Scott or Rob.
Well,
that would
I
be
dropped
interesting.
my physics class. I'm guessing Rob soared through that, but I dropped physics, like not even halfway through it. I just said enough's enough. I had a teacher by the name of Fred Crow, believe it or not, at Bellevue West High School, and great guy, smarter than you could imagine. And I just said after about a quarter of it, I'm out of here. I don't need it this bad. I'm a senior.
Yeah, my high school physics teacher was named Keith Watts.
Okay. Sounds like a quarterback.
Sounds like a drummer to me, but
It does. Drummer in a rock band. Drummer in a rock band. This week in college football, it was so hard to pick 4 games to go through, because we always do the Nebraska game, we always do the Iowa game, and there's so many really, really good matchups. Not just from a betting perspective, just good, solid matchups from a name matchup. But here's what we're going to be taking a look at. That we're looking at the Ole Miss Alabama game as Lane Kiffin goes to Tuscaloosa, where he worked for Coach Nick Saban. Nick Saban is being questioned. Should we say, is Alabama still Alabama, or are they falling off? They fell out of the top 10 for the first time in 8 years. We're going to stay with Ohio State and Notre Dame. That's a hell of a matchup. A lot of people want to see how the Fighting Irish go up against the Buckeyes. And the Iowa game this week is interesting because they're ranked 24th in the country. They take on the Nittany Lions. They lost Luke Lachey, who is their number one tight end. They lost a couple of running backs, but they're deep at both of those positions. And then you have Nebraska taking on Louisiana Tech. Nebraska has learned that it's lost a couple of players for the season, which was disappointing for head coach Matt Rule. Any of those injuries, before we dive into the game, Scott, those injuries, how big do they play in your factoring of these games? I don't want you to get into specifics, just injuries in general when it comes to handicapping.
Well, as far as let's just look at the running back, Gabe Ervin for Nebraska. They have a running back depth issue now with the injuries, and it hasn't affected this point spread at all. And, it's funny because usually it's a quarterback. I mean, the only defensive player in college or pro football that really ever truly affected the line, and maybe Bosa will, with San Francisco, but was Troy Polamalu. The adjustment when he was out on a point spread was a couple of points. No defensive player in my lifetime has ever gotten that kind of line respect as Troy Polamalu.
Not like a Lawrence Taylor or
not even Lawrence Taylor didn't adjust the line. As far as the point spread adjustment, he did, like a point with Lawrence Taylor, but it was Troy Polamalu, man. It was crazy. So when I look at running backs, Nebraska's kind of a weird team to use as an example because their offense has been stuck in neutral for the most part anyway. So, how much does that running back mean? And I don't mean to put Ervin down. I think he's
it's almost like picking lesser of evils type of thing.
Exactly. So you got an offensive line that stinks for the most part in 3 games, a little bit better last week in the second half. But if you have nobody open, smidge. So you don't have anybody opening holes for the running back. So it's almost like you can stick almost anybody in there in that running back room, I think, and can get almost the same amount of yardage. Again, Nebraska's quarterback situation isn't going to move the point spread because they don't have a guy who's played great yet at quarterback. And I like what Harburg did last week. I think he was really good, for the most part, C+, B-, and for what he had to deal with. So Nebraska's in a weird spot where their offensive players don't mean a whole lot to the point spread.
Well, and Rob, just to let you know, and if you don't know, Rob does a report card after each and every game. Scott said your report card was right on. He said you're a good grader, Rob.
I'm trying to be fair here.
Yeah, and that's more than fair. Hey, our first game tonight is going to be in the Southeastern Conference. Ole Miss takes on Alabama. Alabama, 7-point favorite at home. The over-under at 55.5 on this, according to BetFred Sports just about an hour and a half ago. It's a 2:30 game on CBS. This is Lane Kiffin taking on his old boss, Nick Saban. Interesting matchup. Before you get started, my daughter works at the University of Mississippi. She's in the student housing department. They are having a record number of applications. Football's driving it. 2/3 of them are from out of state. That's a cash cow, man. The Lane train, whether he's getting it done or not, he's driving people to Oxford, Mississippi right now. People are excited about Ole Miss football.
It's amazing what athletics can do. I haven't heard, but I imagine Dion is bringing in a whole lot of, not just athletic recruits, but bringing in a whole lot of applications in Boulder. And I saw it firsthand out here at UNLV. When I first enrolled at UNLV in 1984, there were 7,000 or 8,000 students. By the time Tark left, there's 25,000 students.
Wow.
So anyway, but yeah, as far as the game is concerned, the line has dropped half a point. Its highest point was 7 earlier this week. And here's the thing. I know they've dropped out of the top 10. They're power rated Alabama 9th or 10th in most trustworthy power numbers. So they haven't dropped out of the top 10 with those who do power ratings and do this for a living. They're right there in 9th or 10th. Ole Miss around 15th in the country as far as their power rating is concerned. Now, when you do power ratings, you break it down. Alabama comes out to about a 5-point neutral field favorite. So that would mean if you factor in their home field advantage, they're kind of being shortchanged in this one, and you're getting a pretty nice price if you happen to like Alabama. That said, Ole Miss has Pete Golding at DC, a defensive coordinator, and he just spent 5 years with Nick Saban in the same position at Alabama, and I think that's going to be a plus, obviously, for Ole Miss. It's hard to imagine with Alabama's current quarterback situation. It is hard to imagine that they're going to be able to do anything that Golding won't be ready for. And so I think there's an advantage there for Ole Miss. The thing that bothers me, guys, about Ole Miss, and I wrote down some of these notes, they got the quarterback, Joe Dart. He's good, but he gets most of the carries. He runs for most of the yardage. There are only 2 players who have more than 14 total carries so far this season for Ole Miss. You got Quinshon Judkins, the running back, and you've got Dart just over 3 yards per carry. Dart averages about 7 yards per carry. So he's the entire offense. And that worries me a little bit, especially when folks start jumping off the Nick Saban ship. People actually in the state of Alabama saying the game has passed Saban by. He doesn't have a great quarterback. That's the issue with this football team. I'm going to lead towards Alabama, power rating wise. And again, I think Ole Miss counts on Dart too much when it comes to the running game.
We should know too, Scott was red hot last week. You were what, 6-0 last week?
6-0 on Saturday, went 1-2 in the NFL, so not as good in the NFL, but boy, it was fun because my top play last week was on Friday night, which was Maryland going up against Michigan State, who I think people should just keep playing against Sparty until they show that they're going to show up after all the stuff's happened off the field. But anyway, they were my top play. That was Friday night, and then it was kind of like kickback time on Saturday. Top plays out of the way. You got 3-4 more plays to go, and you win the one right out. I won Wisconsin by like half a point to kick off the day. And then I was like home free.
Scott, when you look at those power ratings, where's Ole Miss at?
15th.
Okay.
Yeah, right around there. It's in the 15 to 16 range, depend on whose power ratings you use. Highest I saw them was 14th. Lowest I saw them was 17th. On mine, they're 15th. So
I think it's gonna be a good game, and there's no love lost between the two. So, and I know Lane Kiffin is just desperate to beat his old boss, just to maybe prove a point. Next game on the docket, it's going to be this is a high profile game. It's a 6:30 game on NBC. There's a lot of good night games. I mean, really good night games on Saturday. This is an NBC game. Ohio State, a 3-point favorite as it goes to South Bend. The over/under at 55.5.
I think Ryan Day's feeling the heat in Columbus. I really? Do. Yeah, you know why? Because about a month or so before the season, he had that press conference, and I mean, he was almost whining about, we need to place this Michigan-Ohio State game somewhere else than the end of the season. Rob, you got something you want to jump in on there, I think.
Right now, Scott is predicting that Ryan Day is getting fired at Ohio State.
On Monday.
It's a given. Chalk it up. Chalk it. It's be like Wisconsin last year, right? So I'm just like, when Scott speaks,
he's the kiss of death for college football coaches, man.
I hate being tough like that, but listen, man, before the season began, he comes out and he starts, like I said, almost whining about, this Michigan-Ohio State game. Oh, yeah, great rivalry, but why are we always playing it at the end of the season? It should be middle of the season, and on and on and on. I'm like, are you kidding me? What about like Harbaugh saying we're going to beat the snot out of the Buckeyes, or Tressel saying we're going to beat the snot out of the Wolverines? That's what I want to hear from a Buckeye coach or a Michigan coach, not, I don't know, man. I don't like playing this game, last game of the season. I think it's getting to them a little bit. And Ohio State fans have not been too happy with the look of the Buckeyes, other than maybe that final 3 quarters against an outmanned Western Kentucky team who's not as good as they've been in past years. So kind of factoring that into the mix, and what a difference a year makes. Guys, this line was 17 last year. The Buckeyes were a 17-point favorite. Notre Dame did cover. It was a 21-10 Ohio State win. At halftime, it's 10-7 Dame with about, 50 seconds left in the third quarter. That's about the time that the Buckeyes took the 14-10 lead. And then with about 4 minutes to go in the game, they scored the final touchdown to win 21-10. So last year, Notre Dame doesn't have a quarterback and played this team almost straight up for most of the first, I'm going to say 50 to 55 minutes of that game. They've got the quarterback advantage this year because C.J. Stroud is playing on Sunday. So you got Sam Hartman that comes in from Wake Forest. So far, he's put up 13 touchdowns and no picks, and the offense looks much better. They look like they know exactly what they want to do, from the coaches to Hartman to the rest of the offensive unit. And I'm not, sold yet on Ohio State's quarterback, Kyle McCord. So a little bit different than last year. And I think Notre Dame's going to knock him off here, guys.
Wow.
When you say you're not sold on McCord, I guess, what do you not like about him?
I think it looks like it's how quarterbacks, you either make that, and it's same with running backs too. If you hand a ball to a running back, for instance, they're not sitting there for a second looking to see where the hole is. They just go. It's almost instinctive. And that's what I don't see out of McCord at quarterback. Every once in a while, it looks like he's taking that extra split second to think about where the ball should be, and he just looks a little bit like a lack of confidence that you saw obviously out of C.J. Stroud last year and what you see out of Sam Hartman of Notre Dame this year. So I guess what I'm saying is that it almost seems like he's just a split second behind when it comes to instinctual play. And Rob, you're the guy who played major college football. I did not. But I think there's something there, man, that you either got it or you don't when it comes to here's what we got to do. Guy steps up as quarterback to the line of scrimmage, reads the pre-snap defense, team adjust on the snap, and all of a sudden he's just got to know like that, snap of a finger, what he's got to do. And I don't see that yet out of McCord. It might be an inexperienced thing right now.
And that's something I totally get, and I agree. I mean, I'm going with you on that one. I have not watched Ohio State play yet this year. I'm just looking purely at the numbers, and his numbers look great.
Mm.
I mean, from a pure stat standpoint, I'm looking at him going, okay, these numbers look freaking awesome. Why wouldn't you go with him? I haven't watched him play. Now, I've seen a lot of guys put up some really good numbers against so-so teams, and
right.
I don't think Notre Dame's a so-so team. So I think that changes things a lot. And if you've got somebody who doesn't have that, kind of like what you're saying, that confidence to just instinctually make that decision and go with it, that does change stuff.
And he did a lot of that against Western Kentucky. You know, he didn't look too hot on offense against Indiana. Not him, but the offense itself. Anyway, am I going to be shocked if the Buckeyes win this game? Absolutely not, because of their talent level. And if McCord is out there and he's playing next level, then all of a sudden they win this game. But boy, I just like when I got a quarterback like Sam Hartman in a near pick'em game on their home field, and they played him like, again, almost played him stand up, straight man, straight on for 3 quarters, even more than 3 quarters, and they end up losing 21-10 with a much lesser known commodity at quarterback than they have this year. So yeah, I think the Irish catch them this week.
Iowa finally put up some points last week, put up 41 on Central Michigan. I think people were happy. And, of course, Brian Ferentz has that 25 point per game number that he has to hit. And he finally addressed the rumors on Monday.
You all have had fun with this 25 point obsession, and I get it. I do. But if I'm not mistaken, we just dropped 41 on Saturday. So maybe it's time to grab a hold of your little step ladders and go ahead and climb out of my ass for a while.
And if you wouldn't have told me that was deep fake, I would have said, wow, I can't believe he's doing that.
That is how scary AI is getting. Folks, that was not real. It was generated by a voice simulator, which is right on. And Rob, you remember this because the same guy, I believe it's Heavens FX is the name of the Twitter handle. He did the Dabo Swinney one. Remember that when everybody thought Dabo Swinney goes, oh my God, he goes, when you start getting compared to a Brian Ferentz offense, you're really bad. And it's like, holy, and people bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then, you have to go back and explain that it's fake. Matt Campbell had one too, the Iowa State coach. And if you remember last week after the Ohio game, he appeared to want to go after a fan after the fan said he was on the hot seat. And this is the deep fake AI of the Matt Campbell press conference on Tuesday.
First of all, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The Fiesta Bowl champ does what the f*** he wants. If that troll after the Ohio game wants to meet in the next Rough and Rowdy, I'll send his Mardi Gras bead-wearing trash ass back to Sunnyvale in a coffee can.
Okay, I want to know who's actually coming up with the writing for this.
I think it's that guy. I think he's just coming it up. He inserts the text.
How many coaches have dreamed about saying that, though? I mean, my gosh.
You want every coaches watch that and go, oh, my God, I've been wanting to say that for a long time, but I just can't. So
Dude,
it's like
Scott hit the nail on the head right there. It's like all of these coaches, it's like I want him to change his Twitter page to basically everything coaches want to say but can't.
Well, the funny thing about the Brian Ferentz one, Pat McAfee took it hook, line, and sinker. Pat McAfee, who's now on ESPN and, of course, does College Game Day, he was all over it. And then come on a show, he goes, I had no idea it was fake. That's how good this stuff is getting. And it's funny now, but I'm going to tell you, one day this stuff's going to be scary, and we're all going to be like, holy crap. And somebody's got to explain their way out of a situation and go, I didn't say that. And this stuff's pretty easy to prove because that press conference never actually took place. But Iowa is on the road. I don't think they're going to score 41. They might be lucky to score 3. They might be lucky to score 7. They're at Penn State on Saturday, a 6:30 game on CBS. I don't know about you guys, but I'm having a hard time getting used to the Big Ten on CBS. Already a 15-point underdog, that over-under at 40, Scott.
It stinks out here right now, guys, because we haven't had CBS on our direct TV set up for since about June. And so luckily for me, for instance, I have Amazon Prime, and they've picked up some of that local sports programming for Nevada residents. Otherwise, I'd be SOL, both on NFL Sundays, the local CBS games, and this. So, yeah, I'm complaining right now. Get it together, CBS and local CBS and DirecTV. I want to get my games back. There's nothing worse than watching a game on Prime and you got 8 other games going on. You got to get out of Prime. You got to go to the regular TV. You got to go back to Prime. It drives you freaking nuts. So I hope they get it together soon. But may not want to watch this game if Iowa continues their offensive play. By the way, you know what just popped into my head? Sean Payton ought to say he was deep fake for what he said about Nathaniel Hackett because
we lost it.
He might want to ask about the deep fake stuff and just blame it on that.
Yeah, that would be a good flaw. Sean Payton, that's a good idea. Just say, I didn't say that stuff.
Exactly. But anyway.
The interesting part about this game is there's no love lost. People may not know this because Kirk Ferentz he comes off as that grandpa type, right? He's the dean of coaches in the Big Ten. There is no love lost between James Franklin and Kirk Ferentz. Zero. I don't think they like each other.
Seems like that's an issue between the two coaches, and I'm not back there in the Midwestern Big Ten country, but I've heard about it quite a bit, maybe from you a couple of times, Travis. But yeah, the line's 14.5, 15. The total's sitting at 40. So theoretically, I'm trying to invent new words here. In theory, the books are saying that Penn State's going to win this game roughly 28-13 in that neighborhood. And I'm just trying to question whether or not I think Iowa's going to get to 13, maybe a defensive touchdown, extra point, a couple of field goals. But nothing this team does offensively impresses anybody one bit. You know, I texted you last week during the game, Travis. I know you were on air with that Iowa game. And I'm like, they're going up against a team that is now power rated around 130th out of 133 college football teams. And they can't do squat on offense against a horrible Western Michigan team. I just don't see them doing anything offensively. McNamara goes 9 for 19 last week against a bad football team. Throws as many picks, too, as he does touchdown passes. Williams, I know he ran for $145, and he did it like on 12 or 13 carries. I just don't like this team right now. They're outside of the top 30 in power ratings, by the way. I know they're in the top 25 with the Associated Press, which I never follow, other than the fact I love to see who they think is always the best 2 or 3 teams. And if they're not power rated that way, I like to play against those teams. But anyway, I do believe this number is pretty solid. There's no real value, I don't think, either way. The caveat with Penn State is Drew Allar, he only completed 16 of 33 against Illinois last week. That's a little bit of a red flag, but I think they win this by about the spread, 27-13, 28-13 in that neighborhood.
Yeah, the Penn State-Illinois game last week was interesting because that was close, but Illinois just turned the ball over the time. I mean, would they have 5 turnovers last week? Yeah,
exactly. And I didn't see enough out of the Penn State offense that makes me want to jump out and lay 14, 15 points in this game.
Up next is the game that's going to be in Lincoln. It's a 2:30 game of the Big Ten Network. Nebraska coming off its first win of the season. It won at home last week against Northern Illinois. They are at -20 against La Tech, over under at 47. We mentioned it earlier. Nebraska lost a couple of running backs. Just thoughts on this one. And is this one of those you just sit back and watch and stay away from, or do you like this line?
Yeah, it's up to 21 in some spots now.
Really?
It opened 18, which when I went back and looked at my power ratings after this last week's games, I made Nebraska 18 points better than La Tech on a neutral field. La Tech's one of the 10 worst teams, 15 worst teams in college football this year. They're right around 115 to 120 out of 133 teams. And believe it or not, Nebraska's top 50. They're around 45 to 48 as far as their power rating is concerned. Wow. Yeah, it's, you know what? In some power ratings, Colorado is still below Nebraska. Just to let you know how power ratings take time. You don't want to over adjust. So you might not agree with that, but they are ahead of Colorado still, which I think Colorado's 58th in the power ratings that I use, which shows you how overrated the Colorado Buffaloes are right now too, by the way. And I don't want to take too much away from them. That's another show, I guess. But as far as this game is concerned, yeah, I heard you guys. I was watching the video of you guys the other day, and Rob really scared the crap out of me when he said, I think Tony White, we got to hope he doesn't get an offer to be a head coach somewhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, true. How true is that? This
Michigan
defense-
State's got an opening.
Oh my God. And Ohio State is according to you on Monday, right? So
Exactly.
but
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
Rob, why did you have to introduce that into the conversation?
Yeah, we got 4 days, 5 days until Ryan Day gets fired here.
This 335 and give the players credit, man. They're reacting well, extremely well to it. And I think maybe it was you, Rob, before the season began. I was watching one of your guys' videos and you had mentioned, it's basically a nickel with a 3-down line. And and I,
it's a dime. It's
that way. So
it's a dime defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just instead of, and it's a dime defense with a hybrid guy. I mean, instead of an extra corner, instead of a sixth corner or sixth safety, you got an extra. You find a hybrid guy who's kind of a big safety or a small linebacker as that extra guy. So,
well, I'll tell you what, they're taking to it, and I give the players all the credit. Tony White obviously knows what the hell he's doing. On the flip side, La Tech plays zero defense. They were out first down 56-33 combined by North Texas and SMU. Those two teams finished with 458 yards rushing against La Tech on 5.2 yards per pop. They passed for 561 combined yards, over 7 yards per pass, 5 touchdowns against those two teams. They weren't able to pick off a single pass. Listen, again, they're bottom 15 in college football, La Tech. So if Nebraska can hang on to the football on offense, they should pull away. And one thing I've been really pleased about watching the Cornhuskers in 2 of their 3 games, and against Colorado, the offense was too bad to really get a good read on this. But against Minnesota and against Northern Illinois, and I know Northern Illinois is nothing special, Nebraska was the much more physical team in the fourth quarter of both of those games. And that's something we haven't seen very much since Scott Frost came and took over a few years ago. So I think this is going to be one of those games that even if they turn it over and it's kind of close at halftime, I think they just overpower La Tech after that. I mean, if you hang on to the football, let's say Nebraska turns the ball over once in this game, they should win this. It should be like a 41-10 type of game. It shouldn't even be close. The talent level's so major different. And again, that La Tech defense is garbage, absolute garbage.
Well, you brought up Deion Sanders, and you mentioned you stay up late, and I know Rob stayed and watched up the whole Colorado State game. I don't know if you guys saw the numbers on this. 9.3 million people watched that game. The biggest late-night game for ESPN in the history of ESPN, and the 5th most watched game for ESPN in the history of ESPN. The prime effect is real. People want to watch. It's crazy, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. What I find interesting about this whole thing is when the hire was made and he was doing what he's doing, people ripped him. The elites ripped him. Now everybody's on the prime train, and they're riding his coattails because it's clicks, it's views, it's watches, it's everything. As soon as it starts going downhill, they're going to turn on him just as fast as they've embraced him. I believe that.
If they get boat raced by Oregon and USC the next couple of weeks, all of a sudden they're going to be making fun of prime time. I think you're right about that. And, I remember on Facebook or whatever back in July when I posted that Colorado had taken more action for the national title in some books than all but 6 teams, I should say, in the top 10 at that time. I had mentioned that, somebody jumped on and said, I think they can win 6 games and get to a bowl game. And I was like, I could see that. I couldn't see him winning more than 6, but I could see 6 games. Didn't have a problem really with what Deion was doing or trying to do. His job is to come in and win, and he thought that was the best way. And listen, they had 1 win last year, so they're already well ahead of that. I think they're going to have trouble this week. The constant emotion that the coaching staff and the players have played with for 3 straight weeks against their heated rival last time out, barely winning that game, and basically due to the fact that Colorado State mistaked their way to a loss. I think at some point it's got to catch up to you. And I know he's going to use, the Oregon coach said some things about Deion and all that. He's going to use that again. I just don't think it's going to work this week. I saw so many problems again with that Colorado defense last week.
Rob, you had something on the tip of your tongue. Were you going to say something?
Well, I just, Scott kind of touched on it. I guess I'm just looking at it in the sense that you had 1 win last year. Travis, you and I specifically mentioned that if he wins 2-3 games, it's better than last year.
True. It's already better than last year. I mean,
Yep.
they're selling
Yeah,
tickets, they're selling gear, everything.
I mean, everything. I mean, if you're the Colorado Buffaloes, if you're a Buffalo fan, everything's better. Oregon smokes you, USC smokes you. You pick up, they're what, 3-0?
Yeah.
Right.
You pick up 2 more wins in Buffalo, and that let's say that's it. You win 5 games. That's a monster win.
Heck yeah.
I mean, that's a huge win. You're selling out games. You're selling gear, merchandise. Applications are up. Recruiting's going nuts. Do I see Deion staying there? No. I know he's like, I like it in Boulder. It's like, yeah, no, you don't. You want to be in the SEC. Come on. Let's be serious here. You want to be in the SEC, or you want to end up at some ACC school that's going to be in the Big Ten, a Southern ACC school that's going to be in the Big Ten or the SEC eventually. That's where you want to end up. I'm just saying he's not going to be there that long, but This is such a massive win for Colorado.
And I tell you what, man, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule because, as you said, they're 3-0. They go at Oregon, obviously, this week. The final week of September, they play USC at Boulder. That's going to be a loss, so 3-2. They should beat Arizona State after USC. Arizona State's a real mess and a disaster right now, which is crazy for that program. Stanford could be a win. At UCLA is probably a loss, but UCLA can be a little quirky and can turn a game they should win into a loss. But I'll say they beat Arizona State. They beat Stanford. They'll lose to Oregon State. Arizona's a top Utah. So I'm looking at, they're going to be right on the cusp of a 6-win season and a bowl invitation, I think, at the end of the year. Now, again, they might surprise UCLA. UCLA's got ultra top talent, but they just get a little weird sometimes. You know, they had to struggle with Coastal Carolina to start the season in Pasadena.
Well, let's say they only win 5 games. So they only win 5. They don't go to a bowl game. I think people are just, I mean, in my opinion, that's unequivocally a monster success. Absolutely. Over what they had last year, especially how fast you turn that around. And even the way he did it. I mean, there's some ups and downs to the way he did that. Mm. Let's give him another year. You get a few more guys in there. You kind of bolster the depth a little bit. You got another year's experience. You get Travis Hunter back. Man, maybe you get that run game going a little bit more than it has been. You know he's going to get recruits. You know guys are going to want to go play for him. All of a sudden, year 2, year 3, I mean, at least as long as Shadur is there, I think Deion stays there.
I bet he runs 20 to 30 players this year.
What do you mean by that?
I think the turnover you saw a year ago, you're going to see another turnover. Not as
gotcha.
massive.
I see. He's going to run another 20 guys out of town is what you're saying. The guys who aren't, all right, we brought you in and you're not contributing right now.
Yep.
You're gone is what you're saying.
Would you agree? Would you guys agree with that?
Call your buddy at BetFred and see if he'll hang an over-under on players, the amount of players Deion runs at the end of the season. What do you put it at? 20 and a half?
We'll message Brian and see what he says.
Eric and James, if you're watching tonight, go ahead and Scott just put that prop out there. He'll be down at the Virgin Hotel to place that over under here very, very shortly. Hey, we do have a college football promo for you, and take advantage of it courtesy of BetFred. You can bet Nebraska the first half minus 10.5. You can that's going to change from minus 110 to plus 100 odds. That's a BetFred boost. So that is available on the Iowa and the Colorado app only. If you're an Iowa bettor and you want to bet you know what, you don't have to be a fan to take advantage of these boosts because you're looking for value, and these are value. The Hawkeyes team total 12.5. So that's going to boost from minus 110 to plus 100 odds. So you can get in on that. We want you to work with Scott personally. All right. All you have to do is text the word Doc Talk to the number 29022 and get a free $60 trial of the premium member picks from Scott. He went 6-0 last week. I didn't bet last week. I didn't find any value that I was interested in, so I stayed away. I'll try to get back into the action this week. And by the way, Scott, just confirmed to everybody, I don't call you and ask you for picks. I might every once in a while, but I'm not hounding you for picks all the time, am I?
Only once or twice a day. It's pretty impressive. No, I'm kidding.
You
don't. You don't. You're like the one guy and I don't mind it, because we're close for 20 years now, but you're like the one guy that I work with that doesn't say, who do you like this week?
Yeah, I don't want to take advantage of that friendship. Visit Doc Sports.
You're undefeated anyway. You don't need me.
Visit DocSports.com. Sign up for the free 60 on the upper hand, left hand of the website. Guys, so much fun. I love doing this each and every week. It's a fun night. Some good games this weekend. If you are use that Colorado or Iowa app, remember you got to be 21 plus. You got to be in the state physically to place that bet. And if you do have a gambling problem, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. For Scott Spreitzer, Dr. Rob Zatechka, I'm Travis Justice. We'll see you next time on Behind the Point Spread, presented by BetFred Sports. See you guys.
Take care.